Comrades and friends, greetings to everyone on this wonderful conference, to all party members and sympathisers on this occasion, which is so important and quite unique. I'd like to start by acknowledging that I am speaking from the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge that this is Aboriginal land, always was, always will be. I would also like to acknowledge the generations of comrades across the last 100 years, those who have given so much, have sacrificed so much, have achieved so much for the working class in Australia, for the Aboriginal people, migrants, women and others in our society, in the struggle for peace, as well as offering international solidarity. May they never be forgotten and always be honoured. Comrades, we face at this moment of our centenary unprecedented threats to the future of humanity. One danger is the environmental crisis. The other is the destructive power of nuclear weapons. If more than a tiny fraction of the global nuclear weapon stockpiles were used, the effects would be catastrophic for humanity's survival. But let's start with a bit of good news. The Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, or what's also called the Nuclear Weapon Ban Treaty, was adopted at the United Nations on the 7th of July 2017. It will enter into force on the 22nd of January 2021. First, a moment of history. Communists over the whole world have always been consistent fighters for peace with justice. We're not pacifists, but we are passionate campaigners for peace. Frédéric Joliot-Curie was a French communist and a Nobel Peace Prize winner who began the Stockholm Peace Appeal, which was launched by the World Peace Council in March 1950. The appeal demanded the outlawing of nuclear weapons. The total signatures reached were over 273 million. 70 years later, humanity has won the Nuclear Weapon Ban Treaty, which makes the development, testing, production, stockpiling, stationing, transfer, use and threat of use of nuclear weapons illegal for the countries that have signed the treaty. A great majority of the world's nations support the treaty, except for the nuclear weapons states and a few of their allies. But treaties create norms which become influential over time. Treaties influence the behavior of states, even those who have not signed on. In Australia, 4 in 5 of our people want the government to sign the treaty. Yet the Australian government refuses to sign and continues to assist the command, control, and targeting of US nuclear weapons through the US bases in our country, like Pine Gap. There are many peace campaigns which we as communists are committed to, opposing the astronomical waste of spending on the military, arms sales, drone warfare, solidarity with the people of Palestine and Yemen, and much, much more. But if we are to live to build a new world over the next 100 years, we have two priority tasks. We have to fight for and win a new Australian government which will sign and ratify the nuclear ban treaty and which will close the United States military bases on our soil. I want to look now at the question of the environmental crisis. Comrades, this is a battle for our very lives. We are in a planetary emergency. Vast areas of the planet, including many densely populated coastal areas, will become uninhabitable. Hundreds of millions of people will be displaced. Entire cities and countries will collapse. Human civilization may not survive. The current 1.2 degrees Celsius of warming is already dangerous. 2 degrees would be extremely dangerous. 3 degrees would be catastrophic. 4 degrees would be unlivable for most people around the world. And climate change is only one aspect of this problem. Everywhere, natural systems that maintain our planet are deteriorating. In the past 50 years of capitalism, 60% of the world's mammals, birds, reptiles, and amphibians have been killed off. 1 million plant and animal species are under threat of extinction. Half the world's coral reefs and half the world's tropical forests have been destroyed. Capitalism has polluted our oceans, caused droughts, heat waves, desertification, fires, flooding, storms, and water and food shortages. The fires that ravaged our country are an example of the destruction we face if we do not rapidly change course. Australia must achieve drastic reductions in greenhouse gas emissions in a very short timescale. If Cuba can achieve a 40% cut in emissions in 3 years, then a similar effort can work in Australia if our people act to force the pace of change. Capitalism has been called a war against the earth. There can be no green capitalism. Sustainable development under capitalism is an impossibility. For the capitalists, every crisis is an opportunity to make a profit, to cut costs, to expand. Capitalism has created the environmental crisis. It cannot solve it. It has failed both people and our planet. Australia's leaders have done everything possible to prevent the adoption of serious climate change policy for our country and to protect the fossil fuel industry. In the face of the looming disaster, the recent federal budget gave more funding for coal power and $52 million for gas. The end of civilization due to climate construction is close, but it is not yet inevitable. But it will happen unless urgent global action is taken to achieve fundamental change. Humanity can opt for preservation of capitalism or preservation of life and the environment. 172 years ago, Marx and Engels wrote in the Communist Manifesto, "Oppressor and oppressed stood in constant opposition to one another, carried on an uninterrupted, now hidden, now open fight. A fight that each time ended either in a revolutionary constitution of society at large or in the common ruin of the contending classes." There is a new movement to save the planet. It's growing in numbers and strength around the world. So slogans for system change and signs that denounce capitalism are increasingly popular. In Australia, surveys have shown a slow but steady rise in anti-capitalism sentiments, hostility to big business, suspicion of the traditional political parties, and concern for the environment. The new movement is broad and complex, but is moving in the direction of revolution against capitalism. Communists are playing a part in it, but we must do much more. We must play our leading role in it. This new movement must be prepared for huge political and economic struggles. We face a ruling class out of its mind for profits and power. We face powerful institutions and corporate power. The task ahead is monumental. Disaster is certainly possible. If we fight, we may lose. If we don't fight, we will definitely lose, and humanity will lose its future. There will not be another 100 years. We must, in less than 30 years, transform this country of ours. We must build a planned economy which can eliminate the private profit motive. We must have socialist production, which aims to satisfy human needs, not to overproduce commodities, many of which have little relevance to human needs. Comrades, in times of crisis, impossible ideas can become possible. The corona crisis can be a catalyst for the kind of transformative change that can curb the worst effects of the environmental crisis. Arundhati Roy, that wonderful Indian writer and human rights activist, wrote this: "Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our data banks and dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly, with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it." Comrades, on this centenary, we must confront the reality that what we do now will alter the course of humanity and all life on Earth. Every one of us communists must play a constant, active, effective role in this epic struggles. Our actions in the Communist Party of Australia, with millions of others, must be truly historical in their sweep and consequences, or we will lose the next 100 years. We will lose the future. As we celebrate the achievements of communists over the last 100 years and look forward with hope and revolutionary confidence to the next 100 years. Our challenge, comrades, is to urgently build a movement powerful enough to overthrow capitalism and begin the task of building socialism. Thank you.